All right, folks, this is part 2 of my visit at the President James K. Polk birthplace. So you've seen the cabin tour. Now we're going to check out the cemetery, which has an interesting story on how it got here. All right, let's go. This is going to be the last leg of this tour. So you've seen the cabins and you've also seen the garden. So now we're going to the only known cemetery that is on the site with another staff member, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Amelia, and oh boy, is it windy or
It's
what?
windy, y'all.
I'm the assistant site manager here at Polk.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell you all a little bit about the cemetery.
Absolutely. Now, it's off in the corner over here. And I know that you all have done a lot of different things to do your best to identify how many bodies are buried here. But can you give us the history of the cemetery?
Yeah.
Who's in it and how they're connected to James K. Polk?
Yeah, absolutely. So for one thing, the cemetery wasn't always here. It was brought here in 1988.
Okay, wait a minute. What in the world does that mean? The cemetery was brought here in 1988?
It was brought here in 1988,
Okay.
yeah. So in 1988, the Department of Transportation had a little project called the Outer Loop of 485. And what was right in its path? It was this cemetery, which was right in its path. Now, let me back up a little bit to 1979. In 1979, there was a survey conducted by Peter Cooper, and his job was to go around the proposed loop of Outer 485 and identify different historic sites or sites of historical significance along that path. Many were destroyed. Many were Native American, some were African American, some were related more to the new USA as well. This site was deemed to be saved because of the presence of Maria Polk. And Maria Polk was President Polk's grandmother. So because of her burial here, that is why the site was saved. It did not qualify to be on the registry of or the National Registry of Historic Places because of the poor state of preservation. It had been looted. It had a lot of missing elements to it.
Right.
So it didn't qualify. But because we had this site already established in 1968, the Department of Transportation sought to move it here in 1988.
So, but with this site though, I'm gonna get out the shadow because it's colder there.
Sure thing.
So, but there was a cemetery that was already here, right? Okay, so what you're talking about is solely over there off of 485.
It was.
Okay.
It was.
Okay. But when you say the site was already established, you're talking about the museum site.
The museum was
the
here.
Birthplace site.
The cabins were already here. Cemetery wasn't here. So 1988, the state of North Carolina gets UNC Charlotte's anthropology professor, Kathy J. Reichs, who is actually the author of the popular Bones series, which went on to become a really popular TV series as well. She was an anthropologist, archaeologist who disinterred all of the remains, all 101 remains, and then had them reinterred here at the site. So she headed that up.
Wow.
So it is from her report that we know there wasn't much left over. There were not a lot of headstones. There were not a lot of physical remains, maybe some teeth, maybe some rib bones here and there, some coffin handles, things like that. So not really full bodies at this point.
Wow. And this cemetery is full of that.
It's full of that.
So
yes.
Are we able to go inside?
Definitely.
So at least what this does is it provides us with a linkage at another site that James K. Polk's grandmother was at, off of near 485,
near
the
485,
loop, and this site.
Yes.
Okay. So hopefully you all are understanding that. So this isn't the original cemetery. These were bodies that were brought here from another location off of 485. And if you're familiar with Mecklenburg County, then you would know what 485 is. We have 485, 85, and 77 are the main interstates that are here. But, and just for clarity, James K. Polk's grandmother, Maria, was at another location off of the 485. Okay, and then they just brought them Wow. But you see how that works though, right? Like,
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy how
Yeah.
this site was, it was here and that there was a place to actually put these bodies.
It's fortunate that the site was here, because if it hadn't been here, who knows if the
Where they would have
cemetery
been,
would have
yeah.
been saved. I mean, hopefully it would have somehow, but
Sure.
there were many sites that weren't, and a lot of times cemeteries are the ones that get the axe on that. So
Yeah. So are we suspecting that most of the bodies that are here are relatives of the Polk family?
that's a really good question. With 101 burials, and we only have maybe a dozen or so remains identified, we don't really know. The remains that are identified are the ones that had grave markers that were intact enough for us to identify who they belong to. It was very common in President Polk's time to perhaps have a separate site for the enslaved.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility here as well. We don't know for sure. I wish we did. But it's possible that there are enslaved burials here as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And now, is there a certain place for his grandparents that are here?
Oh, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
do we have that?
In the museum, you might have seen the Ezra and Mary Alexander headstone as well. So that used to be out here.
Okay.
That one was restored by Jason Harp, who is a cemetery historian and conservationist. So we brought that one into the museum a number of years ago. That was before I was working here.
Okay.
So this is Maria Polk's headstone.
Okay. And this would be President James K. Polk's grandmother?
That's correct.
And Sam, which is his father's mother.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Ezekiel Polk's wife, his first wife.
Okay.
So it is a little bit overgrown at the moment. We have some plans to clean it. But on this very, very large headstone, it's about 6 feet tall. It probably weighs about close to 2,000 pounds.
Yeah, this looks heavy.
It's really, it's a big one. Yeah.
It looks heavy for sure.
And Ezekiel Polk, he wrote the limerick that is on this headstone. And he was not known to be a religious man, but on this headstone, he just goes on and on and on and on about how wonderful of a woman she was. What a good Christian, what a good mother, and just on and on and on and on like that for, the entire length of
long,
a 6 foot stone.
Like, I know you can't see it, and maybe once it's clean, you're able to, but it's long.
It is
He has
long.
some stuff to get off his chest.
Definitely.
Some good stuff in his eyes, for sure.
One of the interesting things, though, if you want to get a close up here, we do have a portrait of Maria, little death portrait. So this is really unique. You don't see this on a lot of headstones. This is obviously a family that came from some money.
Yeah.
But this is cool. This is actually her dead in her coffin, laid out like they would with hands across the chest.
Wow.
It is this, what we call a mummiform shaped coffin, which is probably what she was buried in. And then also, if you look really closely, you can see how whoever the artisan was, he took the time to etch in the lines of the linen.
And what year did she pass?
She passed, let's see.
If you're able to see
if we can figure that out. It's on here somewhere.
Can't see any dates.
It's really, really hard to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, needless to say, she didn't go to Tennessee with them. So we know it was
She
before
did not,
18... What, they left in what, 1811?
I think it was before that. Yeah, 1806 was when Samuel and Jane left here, and Ezekiel was already over there.
Okay.
So yeah, I believe she was gone by then.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Okay. So that's that one. Is Ezekiel here?
Ezekiel is not here. There are some people who think this was Ezekiel Polk. It is not. This is actually an infant child of Ezekiel Polk is what the headstone should read once we remove all the bio growth.
So this would be the uncle of President James K. Polk.
Yes, if he had lived.
If he had lived.
If he had lived. We think this was the youngest son of Ezekiel's second or third wife.
Okay.
He got married a lot of times, y'all.
Yeah.
He was a player. So, yeah, and we believe it was this woman's sixth miscarriage or sixth stillborn child, based on what we see on the epitaph.
Okay, and there's some more up here.
Yeah, there's some
and
more.
The reason why I'm going up here is because, we're going to go back into the shadows here.
So this is a double headstone. It says Clarissa and Peggy Alexander, and
Which is a very known name here
very
in Mecklenburg
known
County.
name. We don't know if they were sisters or cousins or what exactly their relation was, but they were both little girls when they died, but they died 20 years apart. So probably when the second one died is when they made this headstone, and they share it, which is actually pretty common practice for that time period.
Okay. Does a cemetery history, is that like one of the things that you enjoy in the field?
Yeah.
That's your,
yes,
that's
I
your
really,
jam?
I
That's
really
your
like
thing?
cemetery history. I've done a lot of studying on cemetery history. I've studied other cemeteries other than just this one. This one, I know a lot about this one.
Yeah.
So this is James Alexander. Move out of the shadow.
Yeah.
This one is kind of funny because James seemed to feel the need in his epitaph to admonish his wife not to forget to take care of their children.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And if you're interested in seeing the transcripts of all of these headstones, we do have them transcribed, and I can get you the link for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works. I'll include it in the description.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. It's on the cemetery project that
Okay.
I did as part of my internship. Yeah, we have all
And there's
of these
actually a couple
transcribed.
of there's actually a couple of links that I'm going to include in the description, so please make sure you check it out. They've been doing a wonderful job of capturing a comprehensive history of this site, and also one that's based on the enslaved folks, the cemetery as well. So it's really cool. So please make sure that you click the links for those as well. All right, who we got next?
Okay, so this one's just very partial. It might have the lines of an old hymn on it. It's really hard to tell. This is just the, excuse me, just the bottom. If it were intact, it probably would have been about this tall, so maybe about 4 feet tall.
Okay.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we don't know who it belongs to.
Yeah.
We can speculate,
Sure.
but that's about it. This one is actually blank on both sides. That was also pretty common. If you couldn't afford the craftsman to do the etching, at least you could afford a nice marker for your deceased loved one.
Yeah.
So
Something.
Yeah. And there's one right behind you too.
Okay.
And I believe this is one of the only ones that is marble. This one and the blank
Eliezer
one over
Alexander.
there. The rest of them are more made of soapstone, which is a much more common rock around here.
Yeah.
But yes, this is Eleazar Alexander. Very interesting spelling of Eleazar. Part of the Alexander family. Probably related to Ezra Alexander, who was a signer of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. If we're allowed to talk about that, I don't know.
Right.
MECDEC has been canceled, right?
Yeah. Most definitely.
Yeah.
And so, but we feel that these are the parameters in which this fence is right now.
Yes, and we're
this would be
confident
it.
on that. Yeah. In 2000, I think it was 2002, they did have some GPR radar done of the site. So they were able to identify each individual burial. And they actually extended the fence a little bit to incorporate some that were outside of the perimeter.
Now, being that this was already a historic site and that this was the birthplace of the president, was there or are there any other cemeteries that you may believe are on the site? I mean, they had 400 acres, and so, or was the bodies prior to, this right here, entered at a church locally?
Very likely.
At a church versus being
Probably.
here on the property?
Well, we know that this cemetery, it was a family cemetery. So there were only a few different families in there that we know of. Whether it was connected to a church, I kind of think if it was connected to a church, we would have complete burial records because other cemeteries of this age that I've seen connected to churches, they have complete burial records. They still have them. So, which is really great. This one, unfortunately, no. It fell into disrepair. Families move away, they forget about it, don't care about it. And then it was rediscovered in the 1950s. It actually made the Charlotte Observer, a man named Redbuck Bryant, who was a very prominent author in the Charlotte Observer at the time. He wrote about it. And according to him, in his words, 2 Negro children were picking plums and stumbled across the cemetery. And that's how it was rediscovered.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting. How true that is, I don't know.
Right.
Redbug Bryant, I've read his stuff, and some of it I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right.
A little sketchy on some of it.
Yeah, but I appreciate the historical archive,
Yeah.
of course.
And these are two more.
These are two more. So
Margaret
this is
McCleary.
Margaret McCleary. Hers is in pretty good shape. She doesn't have a lot of biogrowth. She was 5 years old when she died.
Yeah. She was born in 1763.
Yep, she was.
Man, these people are old.
They're very, very old.
And here's
yeah.
Samuel M. McCleary.
This is Samuel McCleary. We're not sure if there's a relation. Samuel McCleary, from what we know about him, he didn't have any children or any living children. So it could be that Margaret was his child, and she obviously died very young.
Most definitely. I
Yeah.
mean, it says he was born 1708, and he was, he died in 1708, and he was 66 years old.
Yeah.
So clearly, I mean, wow.
I know.
He was born in the 1600s.
Yeah, he was. So yeah, these are some very, very old people in here, some very old burials.
Got to do some more snooping around 485 to see where all these folks are
yeah,
at.
let me know.
You know
I
what
would
I'm
love to
saying?
do that. His is interesting. He's got a coat of arms on his headstone. It is hard to see, and we have these recreated online as well, but it's two lions, one on either side with the shield in the middle. You can see a hand here holding up a dagger.
Okay.
Yep, and then here on the ribbon it says "Garde la foi."
What does that mean?
Keep the faith.
Okay.
Yes. So they were very religious.
Okay.
But that was also part of his family's coat of arms too. Yeah.
So this is the cemetery, y'all.
I don't know if you want me to talk about stone cutters at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do
So
it.
I'll teach you a little trick.
Yeah.
So when you walk into an old cemetery, you can tell instantly how old or how young it is by the shape of the headstones.
Okay.
So if you walk into an older cemetery like this and you see a head and shoulders shape, I'll show you what I mean like that. So this would be the head, the central tympanum, and these two little circles here are the two little shoulders. Head and shoulders. Almost exclusively, this will have been done by Bigham family stone cutters. So they were active from about 1760s to maybe the 1820s. The exact date we don't really know, but they were really known for simple headstone carving shapes and then intricate designs, even lettering, coats of arms, things like that. They were very well known for.
Okay.
The stone cutters who came in after them are Cavney Crawford. And they are a little bit more well known for using a lot more imagery and having more shaped headstone type of things in the cemeteries. But Bigham was actually located here in Mecklenburg County. They serviced other areas of the country as well. Mecklenburg County was the only place where they did not sign their headstones. Not very helpful for us historians who come along a couple hundred years later.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
But at least you have those context clues.
We have that, and given the date of death also, it's fairly likely that we can ascertain that this was done by Bigham. So most of these probably were, with maybe the exception of a few.
Yeah.
And of course, we can't speak to the rest of the 80-some headstones that are not here. So,
Most definitely.
Yeah.
That is quite interesting for sure. Well, it's interesting just to know that, you know, there's a possibility that you have the bodies of multiple different people from racial backgrounds that may be here.
Oh, absolutely.
That previously would have most likely been separated, but due to the removal of the cemetery and not knowing for sure who's here, they could be treated equal.
Oh, exactly.
And
if we speculate, we would say separate, but they were probably nearby somewhere. I've seen this at other cemeteries. If you go up to Mint Hill, there's a cemetery connected to the Philadelphia Presbyterian Church there. Yeah, and it's cemetery is located away from this church now. It's next to Queen's Grant School.
Yeah.
There's a really old cemetery in there, Revolutionary War era, and they do have an enslaved cemetery that is right next to the main cemetery, but it's just a different section.
Yeah.
So they had field stones as their grave markers. If they had anything at all, it was also a common practice for the enslaved to plant periwinkle around their grave sites. So if you're in an old cemetery and you see something like that, it's not really a smoking gun, but it is an indicator that that might be what is going on here.
Most
So, and I do hope so. 'Cause,
Yeah.
yeah, it would be great to honor these people in some way. Even if we don't know their names, we can still honor them in their death. So,
Most definitely.
yeah.
Well, this has been great. I told you all this was going to be a very eclectic site tour visit here at the James K. Polk birth site here in Pineville, North Carolina. And I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
greatly
We appreciate you too, Fred.
You know? So again, if you like this type of content, please subscribe and share. I'm going to put information that the site has been doing in the description. Come on out here. It's a little chilly today, even though the sun's out. It's deceiving, trust me. But there's a greenway trail that's here. The museum is here, as well as the outbuildings as in the cemetery, and they have amazing staff. So appreciate you for following, subscribe, and share. Peace.